Silence is not an option. Join us in raising awareness for Sexual Abuse Awareness Month. April is a big month for those of us who have had experience with abuse in their lives or in their relationships. My experience with abuse happened about 8 years ago when my husband was able to disclose for the first time to anyone that he had a history of abuse at the hands of the Catholic Church. And one of the questions that I had was, oh my gosh, how in the world could you keep a secret like this to yourself for so long? And after doing a significant amount of research and also learning more from survivors themselves, I learned several things. But before I get to those, I want to give some alarming statistics. Something between 1 in 6 and 1 in 10 males are sexually abused before the age of 16. Most sexual abuse of males begins before puberty, typically around 10 years old. Boys are less likely than girls to disclose, and between 70 and 90% of males who have been sexually abused report telling no one at the time. Men disclose being sexually abused in childhood an average of 22 years after the assault, 10 years later than females. And even when they do disclose, it is usually 28 years after the sexual abuse occurred before they have their first in-depth discussion about what happened to them. Sexual abuse can have long-lasting effects on survivors, and I can attest for the fact that it not only has effects on the survivor, but pretty much everyone else who loves them and is trying to support them and comfort them and be for them. So why is it that survivors wait so long to disclose? There are many reasons for this, but I'm going to talk about 2 today, and the first one is fear. They have a fear of not being believed. They fear retaliation. They fear being judged by others. And in a lot of cases, they're afraid that they will be blamed for the abuse. In the case of my husband, where the abusers were in a place of power, you can see how this would be a strong deterrent towards being able to disclose this information. The second reason that abuse is so difficult to disclose is because of the shame and guilt. There is shame related to the abuse. In a lot of cases, the survivors feel guilt for not being able to stop the abuse, for not being able to protect themselves. And often they feel like they should have been able to do something to avoid the abuse, or sometimes they feel like they caused it. So why 22 to 28 years after the abuse occurred do men come and tell their story? Well, they have been masters for obviously a very long time at suppressing the memories of what occurred to them. And what I have found is that memories start to come to the surface when certain criteria is met. And the first set of criteria that allows for those memories to come forward to get to a point of being able to tell others is having enough time and distance from the abuse. And so that means not just physical difference, maybe even the abuser is now no longer in this world, but there needs to be enough distance between the survivor and the abuser for some of those memories to start to surface. In addition, just time away from the event can help those memories come to light. The second thing is that they have had sufficient emotional discharge. That is usually another criteria that allows for these emotions to surface. And what that means is that they're able, or in an environment now where they feel safe letting their emotions come to the surface. And the third condition that often brings these memories to the surface can be, it doesn't always have to be, but can be some catastrophic event or just a big event in general that brings up a lot of triggers. So for example, having a son who is the age that they were when the abuse occurred, or having a significant event in their relationship such as divorce or loss of that relationship, even a death of a family member. But what I really want to touch on is the fourth condition that often needs to be met for survivors to come forward, and that is that they have found a safe place and a safe relationship that they feel comfortable sharing. And I found in my situation that that was one of the biggest reasons why my husband was able to come forward with his story and do the healing that needed to occur in order for him not to lose everything. There is so much left to do in the awareness of sexual abuse, and I think that there is a lot of work that needs to be done for those of us who are supporting someone in childhood trauma abuse recovery. I was put into this position, as I mentioned, 8 years ago, and I could find very little that gave me any sort of advice as to what I was to expect from the recovery process, how I could continue to be a good supporter without completely losing myself. And what I have learned after talking with other wives who have been through this is that in many cases, not knowing what to expect and not having techniques and tools for dealing with the recovery process has led to a lot of relationships not being able to be sustained. My husband and I have been married for 12 years now, and 8 of those years were in the recovery process. And I absolutely believe that my husband and I made it through for a reason. I think that our story can help others, and I am 100% committed to stopping the silence of wives who are struggling with being in the supporter role by themselves. It is often very isolating. There is very little information out there, but I want those supporters to know that you can stop the silence, you can have the support that you need, and you don't have to do it alone. I have written our story in a book, and it is called Resilient Wives, and you can check it out on Amazon. But I also want you to check out my website at www.daniellesebastian.com, because I have tried to put together as many resources as I possibly can with all of the research that I've done, the interviews that I've done, and my trial and error experiences to give to wives who are in this position so that they don't have to do it alone, and that gives them real tactical approaches for dealing with the recovery process, things to say, things to do that won't make things worse. So check out my website, and also check out the resources that I've included in the description for more that you can do for Sexual Abuse Awareness Month.